all of those things. And that excess insulin, nobody tells you about. But the symptoms are, dang, I feel like I got to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Their debris or their fuel keeps running out. When you say, boy, I can eat once at the end of the day and I'm pretty good. My focus stays really good. What I want you to prove is, what are your ketones during the day? So when you've got a patient who has done that, their ketones will be 0.7, 1.0. And they're taking out the trash all day long.
So there's these two energy sources. One of them's the glucose. One of them's, which is from eating pasta, which I ate last night. So that probably put a lot of glucose in my blood. I probably had a high glucose spike and then insulin came out to deal with that. And then there's ketones, which start to appear when I'm fasting or when I haven't been eating carbs for a while and my body's looking for an energy source.
Yeah.
In terms of these two energy sources, there seems to be a lot of hype around ketones.
Mm-hmm.
So why doesn't our body just run off ketones?
It will, as soon as you're done lowering your insulin. And I mean, insulin grew in these patients. They didn't know that it was growing high. They went to their blood test and their glucose looked normal. What nobody checked for years is how much of that insulating hormone did it take to keep the glucose controlled? And that's where chronic diseases are grown in spades. That's where autoimmune disorder.
The insulating hormone being insulin?
Yes.
Okay.
So that excess insulin for the last decade, had you come into my clinic, we'll put a label on it, call it PCOS, call it high blood pressure, call it autoimmune problems. All of them are linked to high insulin. Glucose, when you want to store it, we put it in a fancy string called glycogen. And it's just an efficient way to store glucose. But as soon as your body needs it, it will unlock all of that sugar back into your access, back for you.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't realize is, well, how much glycogen you got stored over there? How much is there in storage? And that is what high insulin has been doing. Just put it in storage, put it in storage. And then when you stop eating, you'll know if you emptied out all your stored sugar, which is some of the regular sugar you just ate, but then all this glycogen, this packaged sugar. How empty are you? I don't know. Have you made a ketone yet? You cannot make a ketone. You cannot burn fat until that tank is empty.
Okay, so I have these glycogen stores which last for, a day or two?
Oh, no. Think of it as brown sugar. So you package the sugar really tight, and then you put it in the back of the drawer and it turns crusty because you never lowered your insulin. I have patients that are overweight, and we put them on a ketogenic, we put them on a 20 total carbohydrates per day, so super low carbohydrate. It is 15 days before they make a ketone.
Okay, so it could be it could be up to 2 weeks, for example,
right,
before my glycogen stores are empty. And it's not until my glycogen stores, my glucose stores are empty that my body can start producing ketones.
Correct.
So it's going to exhaust all of those glycogen stores. And then once it's ran out, it's going to switch into this ketogenic state.
Right. Yeah, so think of it as your short-term, easy-to-access sugar has to decrease. And that means your insulin has decreased. That hormone for insulate, they both run in tangents. You decrease, you're emptying glycogen, your insulin's going down.
So how do I know if I have insulin resistance? What are the key signs? You mentioned skin tags. I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, skin tags are not moles. So moles, you can feel this bump on your skin, right?
Yeah.
But a skin tag has a neck and like a little mushroom. And it's the most annoying thing when patients come and say, well, I just tried to cut them all off, but they kept bleeding. I'm like, do not cut them off. They'll fall off when your insulin's lower. So that's the first place. It'll be found in their armpits or places where their skin rubs, so armpits and their groin. And once insulin starts to grow them, it's like a crop, a little baby cauliflower hanging out in their armpits.
You talked about velvety skin.
Yes.
As well being an indicator.
Velvety skin is this Latin word, acanthosis nigricans, which is a fancy word that means the skin is darker and thicker. So the places it usually happens is the back of the neck. And you'll hear, stories of, I tried to wash my neck. It's dirty all the time. It's not dirt. It is the way the skin is under the curse of high insulin. And you see it in teenagers all the time now. They put on weight and their growth hormones are already doing that teenage thing. Now you put high insulin in there and they have this dirty neck syndrome. Or on the creases of their elbow, it's just darker here. That is pathology. That's not normal from high insulin.
You talked about weight changes as well. What's this thing about hairy toes that I was reading about?
Right. So as my patients age, so most of my 55-year-olds that have had high insulin, I will tell them, look at your toes. They're supposed to have hair on them. And when your body has had that high insulin state for a couple of decades now, it will start to say, we don't send resources to a couple parts of the body anymore. And the follicles in their toe are one of them. Like, you just stop growing hair on your toes. And there's an ascending problem with this, where the toe starts, then it's the ankles, then it's up to the knees, and they don't have hair anywhere on their lower extremities. It is a process that started from high insulin.
What about aging? You talked about how if you have high insulin, there'll be an impact on your aging. Now I'm thinking about, I'm getting a couple gray hairs now. I'm thinking maybe this is because of my insulin levels.
I have seen patients that have reversed their gray hair on a ketogenic diet. It blew my mind. They asked me for the reason why that happened, and I thought, well, the cells are healthier that are making your hair. That's all I got. Aging is exactly that enemy, which is they are going around the sun with more growing of the trash than they needed. So that high insulin, they don't know about it. They've not produced a ketone in years. And that chronic disease is now difficult to get the eye to clean out. It's difficult to get that brain trash removed. And you're supposed to do it every night when you sleep. It's not supposed to be behind this far. You're 2 decades from taking out the trash in your brain. That's aging.
How do I, for a start, even know my ketone blood levels?
Well, when a patient first comes in saying, how do I begin? I want them to tell me what they had for their meal and then say, how many carbs do you think that was? Because this education, like an apple is 20 grams of carbs, 15 grams of carbs for some of them. And we're going to ask you in the first 6 weeks to take your carb intake down to less than 20. 20 total grams of carbohydrates or less is where we begin. And again, I do this in a medical grade. There are people who play with a ketogenic diet, and there's people who try to reverse medical problems with a ketogenic diet. Mm-hmm. In order to do this, it is not a lazy kind of keto. You have to actually be on the same team as me using data to reverse this medical problem.
And how does one measure their blood ketone levels?
Yeah, I think blood is the best. There is a way you can measure them in urine. The burning of fat, if you turn that string of fat into ketones, there are 2 destinies for that. You either put it into a mitochondria and turn it into energy, or you pee it out. So especially when they're early in a ketogenic journey, they overshoot. Evolution said, don't let them die. Turn that fat into energy, help them through the famine. So the excess ketones they make end up in their urine. We call them ketone strips, and they're cheap and easy, and we don't have to cross that barrier of somebody pricking their finger at the beginning. So they're going to pee out ketones every day as long as they're not chronic insulin resistant.
So if I avoid carbs for a sustained period of time, which could be a couple of days, it could be up to 2 weeks, eventually my body's going to say, listen, we need energy. So it's going to start burning my fat stores.
Yes.
From some of that fat around the midsection, and it's going to start turning that into ketones, which are a different type of energy. Are there any reasons why ketone as a source of energy is better for me in terms of performance other than the insulin reasons that we've talked about? Like, are there any other parts of my body or my health that benefit from ketones?
For starters, when you're burning a ketone, there's less trash, okay? It is a cleaner fuel with less byproduct, especially as you age. So you get the longer energy and you have less debris floating around. You hear the word antioxidants all the time. Well, burning ketones is an antioxidant state. And it's in the space where you need it, which is inside that cell. You swallow antioxidants and you have no guarantee that they end up where they're supposed to. So number one, the fuel is reducing trash at a cellular level. It lasts longer, and it penetrates through that blood-brain barrier to fuel a brain that, even if it's insulin resistant, it can use a ketone. So the problem with somebody who's chronic insulin resistance, their brain needs a lot of glucose to stay online. And I can try to get it there, but insulin is constantly fighting that. It's a war to try and keep the glucose in their brain. My hack is ketones will go right around that. It doesn't need the same transporters to get across the blood-brain barrier, and especially to fuel those cells in the brain. So for performance, name a game where you don't use your brain. There isn't one, right? You're gonna, if you're looking at performance, to say, let's begin with the sharpest brains and the most focus, the most discipline, the less impulsivity. All of those things improve when that brain is being fueled with ketones.
So let's focus on the brain part then. So what have you personally noticed as someone who I assume is in the ketogenic diet right now?
Yes.
What have you noticed the variances between when you're in a keto diet and when you're not?
Right. Well, I've been doing this since 2015. So the onset of it was really messy, but the seasons where I would do a great job and then I would think, I'm fine. I mean, I can tell you, you see 25 patients in a day and I feel bad for the last 5. They've got a sluggish brain. I don't care how much coffee you've got in you. You can't keep that focus for that length of time. When you're in a ketogenic state and not in a ketogenic state, the brain power, the concentration, the ability to keep your mood controlled is just, it is a night and day difference for most people. But I think especially for me, like I'm pretty high energy, and when it runs out, I get crabby, and that's not a good place to be if you're the patient.
Yeah, I think I've noticed that as a podcaster, but I've also had a lot of very well-known podcasters say the same thing, which is the variance in their ability to speak and articulate themselves and think and sit here for 3 to 4 hours having a conversation is night and day when they are in a fasted ketogenic state versus, or on a ketogenic diet versus when they are in a higher carb diet.
Right.
And it's so profound to me that I almost wonder why like more people don't.
Oh, it's insane. Like one of the best things that I've done in 25 years was I went out on a limb and said, I'm going to try and teach 200 people at once how to do this intense ketogenic diet for 3 weeks. It is hardcore. This is not playtime. You're checking your numbers every day and you're comparing them to your classmates. And what you get to see in this class of 200 people going with an extreme ketogenic diet is the testimony you just said. I cannot believe how good I feel. By the end of 3 weeks, they're naming babies after me. They think this is a miracle. And I'm like, exactly. I mean, when you do it in a group like that, I don't need to advertise. They tell their friends, they tell their, like, if you want to be on a ketogenic diet that really wakes up your brain, that I didn't think I could do this. I thought I was too old for this level of energy. And it's there within 3 weeks of doing it right.
How long does it typically take on average for someone to feel those brain benefits from doing the ketogenic diet? Typically. How long does it take you?
Me?
Yeah.